Welcome to the Mobile Home Friend YouTube channel. I am Charles Odell, and this is your primary resource for everything manufactured housing. Whether you are tackling a full remodel like the one you see here, or just looking for honest advice on repairs and financing, we provide the data and technical deep dives you need to succeed. Our mission is simple: to help you save money and improve your home through first principles logic and transparent cost breakdowns. For the full technical guides and even more resources, visit us at mobilehomefriend.com.
Welcome to another deep dive from Mobile Home Friend. Today, we're getting into what is, without a doubt, the biggest hidden risk for any investor looking at mobile homes on private land. We're talking about utility installation costs. And this is all based on our latest research over at mobilehomefriend.com. Yeah, we wanted to put this right up front because it is the absolute truth. Look, a failed septic system or a well that's gone dry, that's not just some minor inconvenience. It is a straight-up deal killer. It can completely vaporize your profits and then some. And this is the number that shows you just how serious we are. We're talking about a potential hit of anywhere from $10,000 to, get this, over $40,000. I mean, that is a massive, massive variable that can flip a fantastic deal into an absolute financial nightmare if you walk in unprepared. So, okay, let's break that down. What actually makes this a potential $40,000 deal killer? Well, unlike a house in the city where you just pay a utility bill, on private land, you are the utility company. You own the whole infrastructure. That septic tank, that water well, they're your problem. They're complex little mechanical systems. And when one of them goes down, trust me, the bill lands right in your lap. And that brings us to what is maybe the single most important rule of thumb you need to burn into your brain. You have to go into every single deal assuming the site requires the most expensive option. You just have to. Assume the worst, budget for the worst, until a pro can come in and prove, with a test, that you can get away with something cheaper. Okay, let's dig into the first big one, the septic system. Now, a lot of people think, logically, that the cost is tied to the size of the home, right? Bigger home, bigger system, bigger cost. Nope. It has almost nothing to do with the house. It is all about the ground it sits on, the soil. That is the one thing that dictates the price tag. And this is how you figure it out. It's called a percolation test, or what everyone in the business just calls a perk test. Basically, a soil expert comes out and sees how fast water drains through the soil. And the result of that one single test is what determines if you're writing a check for $3,000 or, $30,000. It is that critical. Right, and this chart basically lays out the 3 roads you can go down. If you get lucky and the perk test comes back great, you can install a simple, relatively cheap conventional system. But if that soil is no good, the health department is going to legally require you to install a much more complex and expensive system, like an aerobic unit, or, for the really tough lots, a huge mound system. By the way, we have a full cost comparison chart breaking all this down in the article over on mobilehomefriend.com. So let's just hammer this point home. This is a non-negotiable directive for you as an investor. You never buy a property that needs a septic system without a current, successful perk test in your hands. Don't rely on some tests from 5 years ago or what the seller says. A failed perk test doesn't just mean you spend more money. In some counties, it can literally make the land unbuildable. Game over. Your investment is worthless. All right, so that's septic. Let's pivot now to the other half of this puzzle, your water well. Now, the good news here is that unlike septic systems with all their soil variables, the cost of a well is a lot more straightforward. It really just comes down to one main thing. How deep do they have to drill? Yeah, it's best to think about the total cost in 2 separate buckets. First, you've got the drilling and the casing. That's the pipe that lines the hole. That cost is variable, priced by the foot. The deeper they go, the more you pay. The second bucket is a more or less fixed cost for all the hardware, the pump itself, the pressure tank, the electrical stuff. You got to make sure you're budgeting for both pieces. And you can see that per foot cost right here. It can vary a whole lot depending on your area. The average is, around $47.50 a foot. But if you're drilling through solid rock or the property is way out in the middle of nowhere, yeah, you can easily see that price tag climb up to the high end, $65 a foot, maybe even more. So the whole process is pretty logical. It basically follows these 4 steps. First, the drillers show up and do their thing. Drill the hole, put in the casing. Next, the pump system gets installed down in the well. Then an electrician comes out to hook everything up to your panel. And finally, and this is absolutely not optional, the water gets tested by a lab to make sure it's actually safe to drink. Okay, Here's another really important directive for investors. Just because the lab says the water is safe doesn't mean it's good. Well water can be loaded with minerals, iron, calcium, that hard water stuff, and that will absolutely stain your sinks and toilets and destroy your appliances over time. So, budgeting for a whole house filtration system isn't a luxury, it's a must do to protect the value of your property. Okay, so we've talked about all the risks, right? The big scary numbers. So, how do you actually protect yourself? Well, let's get into the really practical part here. This is your non negotiable checklist. These are the things you have to do before you close on the property to take the risk out of the deal. And look, this isn't just a friendly suggestion list. These are line items for your due diligence budget. You've got the perk test. You might need an engineering design for the septic. You absolutely have to pay for health department permits. And you got to find a licensed contractor and budget for excavation. None of this is optional. And hey, if you want the full technical breakdown on each of these costs, that's all in the post on mobilehomefriend.com. And please, a huge warning on this one. Make sure your contractor is licensed for both septic and well work. This is not a job for a general handyman. This is highly specialized, highly regulated stuff. If you use someone who isn't licensed, you are opening yourself up to massive liability, and chances are the county will make you pay a licensed pro to rip it all out and do it all over again. It's just not worth the risk. Okay, let's start to wrap this up, protecting your profit margin. See, all this due diligence, it's not just about avoiding a catastrophe. It's about actively protecting your bottom line. When you have this knowledge, you have the leverage. You can negotiate smarter, and you can budget with real, actual numbers. And remember that rule of thumb we talked about? Here's the final version of it. Whatever your contractor gives you as a low estimate, you need to tack on a 50% contingency fund, always. Because I promise you, something will go wrong. They're going to hit a giant rock, the soil will be different 10 feet down, something. That buffer is what keeps a surprise from wrecking your entire profit. If you only remember one thing from this whole explainer, please let it be this quote right here. Never, ever, ever rely on the seller's assurances. Oh yeah, the septic works great. Don't listen. As we noted on the site, the only way to know for sure is to get your own independent professional inspections. It's the only way to verify these huge, expensive systems are what the seller claims they are. So that's really the question it all boils down to, isn't it? Is this property a hidden gem, or is it a future money pit just waiting to swallow your cash? By following these steps, getting the tests done, truly understanding the costs, budgeting for the worst, you'll have the answer. You can walk into that deal with confidence, knowing exactly what you're getting into. Thanks for watching. For more guides and the full article on this topic, head over to mobilehomefriend.com. And hey, don't forget to check the links in the description below.
Thanks for watching. For more technical guides on this topic, click the link to see the in-depth article over at mobilehomefriend.com. There are many more informational dives into manufactured home topics to investigate and keep your project moving forward.